Hello, everyone again. It looks like we've got ourselves situated here. My name is Natalie Padilla. I have worked with PERA for just about 3 years. It'll be 3 years now in March. Super excited to be here with you all today. I started out in our call center and then moved over to our records department, and now I am here in our outreach bureau. So super excited to be with you all today. Also on our webinar this afternoon is our bureau chief, Ms. Christina Perea. So just a quick hello from Ms. Christina. She's here at the end of the seminar. If anybody has questions, we're more than happy to assist and answer any of those questions. You can, I believe you can raise your hand during this seminar, and I can definitely unmute you, or you can send your questions in the chat, and Ms. Christina and I can take a look at those as well. So welcome to our February topical seminar. As you can see on the screen here, we have For the Love of Your Beneficiaries. So we not only celebrate Valentine's Day during the month of February, but all year long for our members and our beneficiaries. So we will go ahead and get started. All right, so just a little bit of general information about PERA. So we are a 401A qualified government plan. So we're governed by the New Mexico Public Employees Retirement Act. We are governed by a board of trustees. So we're a little bit different than other state agencies in the fact that we are governed by our board. So they oversee our trust fund from which retirement payments are paid out from, as well as where our agency operations are funded from as well. So we have a board of 12 members. They represent backgrounds just like you and myself. We are comprised of state, municipal, and county employees on our board, as well as we have 2 retiree members of our board as well, excuse me. And then we have a representative from the Secretary of State and the State Treasurer as well. So that trust fund provides benefits for over 47,000 active members and over 42,000 retirees and their beneficiaries. So each one of those retirees and those active members has had to or is working toward retirement under one of our 31 coverage plans. So we cover retirement plans for all state, city, county, judicial, magistrate, employees through the state of New Mexico. So we are a broad agency. We cover a lot of field for our retirement plans. We offer a lot of awesome perks here with PERA. So we'll go a little bit more over that as well. So we are a defined benefit plan, which means that at the time that you qualify for a retirement with age and service credits, you are guaranteed a lifetime pension at the time of retirement. So regardless of how much money you are putting into your current retirement plan with PERA now, you are still guaranteed a lifetime benefit at the time that you're eligible to retire. So unlike a 401k or Roth accounts, where you put in money during the course of your career, at the time of retirement, you start receiving those payments. Once that bucket of contributions is gone, once that money is at zero, then your payments also stop. So PERA is much different in the sense that even when your account balance is at zero for what you contributed to your retirement account, if you are still living and receiving that pension, you are guaranteed that lifetime pension for the remainder of your life, as well as the remainder of your beneficiary's life, if that is the option that you're choosing at the time of retirement. So super awesome. We're one of the top 5 retirement plans in the country, being that we offer this lifetime pension at the time of retirement. At the time of retirement as well, when your contributions are at zero, that's where that trust fund that we were just speaking about kicks in. So if you're still living and receiving those benefits when your account balance is at zero, that is where your retirement payments are coming from our general fund. So, excuse me, also as a retiree from PERA, you are also possibly eligible for a cost of living adjustment, which is a super awesome perk that PERA provides. So I know, for example, at the time of retirement, now that my dad is retired from PERA, and so now at the time of his retirement, he is actually making more per month than he was during the time that he was working. So, and that is due to the cost of living adjustments that he's received. So it's a super awesome perk that PERA provides. We also offer disability retirement at the time that you're vested if you meet qualifications. So God forbid something were to happen to you on or off the job. We also offer a disability retirement as well. So you can, if something were to happen to you, you can apply for that. You do have to meet the qualifications to receive that disability retirement. But it is another perk that PERA provides just in case something were to happen to you on or off the job. All right, so kind of jumping right into our beneficiary designation, the whole purpose of this seminar today. So beneficiary designation is super important long before retirement. So I know a lot of our members are not quite thinking of their beneficiary or their retirement. You know, while you're working, you get up, you go to work every day, you do your thing, you put in your time, and you're striving to reach that eligibility for retirement. But it is super, super important to not only be following up with all of your information with PERA, your service credits, all that good stuff, but you're definitely going to want to be sure to be making note of who your active beneficiaries are during the time that you're working. So member contributions are your money and will be paid out to the person in the event of your death while you're employed, either as a monthly pension or as a benefit, as a monthly pension benefit or a refund. So it's super important to know that there are two types of beneficiaries that you can list for your PERA retirement account. One is going to be our survivor beneficiary, and then the second is a refund beneficiary. So we'll go a little bit over what those mean specifically and how you, what you can take a look at for selecting who those individuals you want to have on your account. So you should have, when you started employment with a PERA-affiliated employer, filled out a beneficiary designation form at the time of hire. If not, if you don't remember, if you're not too sure who you listed as beneficiary at that time, no worries, we're here to help. All of our forms are located on our website, so you can go to www.nmpera.org, go under members, and under forms, you can find this beneficiary designation form if you're needing to fill out a new copy. So pre-retirement, you can choose one refund beneficiary, one survivor beneficiary. This can be two different people or it can be the same person. And again, we'll go a little bit more in depth for that information as well. And this may be different from the beneficiary that you designate at the time of retirement. So just as a general note, you can only list one beneficiary to receive your pension benefits, and that will be either pre-retirement or post-retirement. That does or is possibly a little bit confusing, being that you can list two separate people, but we'll go into depth about that in explanation. But just keep in mind that this beneficiary that you're listing while you're actively employed can be different from the time, you know, this is not set in stone as far as your retirement beneficiary. All right. All right, and then just some general information about beneficiary designation change requirements. So if you are needing to, excuse me, submit a change in beneficiary designation form, you'll want to be sure to just be making note of all of the supply documentation that you need to turn in along with your beneficiary designation form. These are super important. We really, really want to be sure that if anything were to happen to you, your funds go to the correct individual that you are wanting them to be received by. So anytime you're making changes to your beneficiary selection, please just try to remember to submit a copy of your new beneficiary's driver's license or birth certificate. It doesn't have to be both, just one or the other. as a form of proof of age. So this is super helpful for us when we're taking a look at setting up that new beneficiary's account in our system here with PERA. So basically, when you are an active member with PERA, you get set up with your own account and you are working and you're contributing, and all of that service credit is getting added to your account. All of your information is set in one designated area. When we're setting up your beneficiaries' information, they get set up with their own account. So at the time of your passing, basically what happens is we start to take a look at their account, get information from them, any type of documentation that we're still needing from them at that time gets added to their specific account. So it's super important that we make sure that we're supplying all of this following documentation just to be sure that it gets designated to the correct individual. So along with a copy of their proof of age, we also ask for a copy of their Social Security card for reference. So when we're setting up their account, we cannot set up your beneficiary's account without having a Social Security number. Now, we can set up the beneficiary account without having a proof of age or a copy of proof of age and a copy of the Social Security card, as long as we have the number. However, it's extremely helpful in case something were to happen to you to have that on file already, so that we don't have to ask that individual for that information later, because we do need that as verification to make sure that that is the correct individual that's to be receiving those funds. So super important. Again, it won't stop us from adding your beneficiary into your account. It's just for us to have on file for you and for your beneficiary in the event of your passing, to make sure that we have everything good to go and that there isn't anything slowing down the process. Something super important that will affect a beneficiary designation change: if your beneficiary change is due to divorce, you must submit a copy of your court-endorsed final divorce decree and marital settlement agreements in order to make that change. So what happens often is that we will receive a beneficiary designation form. This change is due to divorce, but we don't have the divorce documents on file. So unfortunately, if that was your ex-spouse that was initially listed to receive your funds, it will stay as that individual until we receive a copy of that final divorce decree and marital settlement agreement, and until our legal department reviews if that pension or those benefits are to be divided between you and your previous spouse. So if your divorce decree does not reference anything about division of those benefits, or if it says that you were entitled solely to be the individual that receives those benefits, then we will just place that divorce decree in your account, save it for reference. So at the time of retirement, we don't have to ask you for that information again, and we will make the change on your account. So it's, again, just super important that we make sure that you know that if that change is due to divorce, we do need a copy of that information in order to proceed with making that change. If your beneficiary change is due to marriage, we'll need you to supply a copy of your marriage certificate just to add to your demographic information. So this is similar to the first bullet that we went over. It won't change whether or not we can update your beneficiary unless you've been divorced prior and are getting remarried. We still need that divorce documentation. But if you are getting married and this is the first marriage that we have on file for you, then we'll just need a copy of your marriage certificate just to have so that we place it into your demographic information and have it for later. It won't stop the process again, just super helpful for us to have so we don't have to ask for it. Again, super important, something that will hinder us updating that beneficiary information. If you are married and listing someone other than your spouse as your current beneficiary, please submit a copy of a notarized beneficiary spousal consent form. So that goes along with your original beneficiary designation form. New Mexico is a community property state. So if you are listing someone other than your spouse to receive your benefits at the time of your passing, your spouse does have to consent and agree to that selection of beneficiary. So if that is the case, no worries at all. There's a second form that you'll need to fill out and have notarized to supply along with your beneficiary designation form. Just stick them together, send them in, and we'll get that information updated for you. Again, just to mention, if we don't have that spousal consent form, we cannot update your account information. So just be super sure if you're not able to access that information, please reach out to us. We can quickly send you a copy of the form, have you fill it out and send it back in to us. If you're listing a beneficiary that is under the age of 18, please supply a copy of any legal guardianship documentation or a last will that notes the legal guardian's information. Again, something that's not going to hinder us updating the information, but we definitely need it at the time of your passing, and it just makes things extremely easier if we have that information on file for you and we don't have to wait to receive that from the legal guardian of the individual that you're listing. So just kind of keep in mind, you don't need that right away, but it is definitely something that you might want to just consider to get turned in sooner rather than later. That way, the minor child that is to receive those funds or the legal guardian at that time does not have to submit that and prolong the process. If the legal guardian is the other parent of the child that you're listing as beneficiary, all you'll need to do, you don't need to supply legal guardianship documentation, but you do need to supply PERA with a copy of the child's birth certificate, as well as the other parent's identification. So driver's license, passport, something like that, that identifies the individual as the other parent that is on the birth certificate. So all of this is just for verification purposes, again, to make sure that your funds are going to where you want them to go. We want to do our due diligence to make sure that we're getting those funds to the correct individual. If your beneficiary on file has passed since you have updated that information with us, what you'll need to do in order to change it is supply us with a copy of that individual's death certificate in order to make the change. This will hinder us applying that change to your account. So this is something that will stop the process. So we'll need to receive a copy of that individual's death certificate prior to making that updated change on your account. All right. All right, and then just some beneficiary designation tips. I worked in our call center for a little over 2 years and got all of the questions that you could possibly think of. These are just a few things, a few of the more important things that we tend to either see as members call in, questions that come up, but just for your reference to make sure that you are updating this information as often as necessary and making sure that you're supplying all of the documentation to PERA that's needed to make those changes on your account. So just a few little tips here, understanding the difference between your refund and survivor beneficiary. So I know that we touched earlier on going over specifically what each one means. So a refund beneficiary receives a one-time lump sum payment of your contributions on account at the time of your passing if you are not a vested member. So for example, if you are currently working for a PERA affiliated employer, you have 3 years of service credit, and God forbid something were to happen to you at the time of your passing, whoever is listed as your refund beneficiary would receive that one-time lump sum payment of funds on your account. A survivor beneficiary is different in the sense that they receive a monthly pension payment at the time of your passing as a vested member. So once you're vested with PERA, which means that you have 5 or more years of service credit, if something were to happen to you past that 5-year mark, your survivor beneficiary would be the first to be contacted to receive that benefit. For example, if you have 15 years of service credit, let's say, and something happens to you, you pass away, your survivor beneficiary would be contacted. They would receive a monthly benefit on your account for your pension payments. So they would receive that monthly benefit. it's going to be based on the amount of years that you have in at that time. So it's either going to be form of payment option B is an option that you choose at the time of retirement. It's one of our options that you can choose from. So it's either going to be 30% of your final average salary or the amount that you would receive under option B for that amount of service credit, either one, whichever is higher. So just to kind of keep that in mind in terms of if you are looking to list two separate people, two different individuals as beneficiary, just note that if you're not vested, your refund beneficiary would be contacted first. If you are vested, then your survivor beneficiary would be contacted first to receive that monthly benefit payment. If your survivor beneficiary is to receive those funds and does not contact PERA or comply with PERA's requirements for applying for that benefit, within 1 year of the date of your passing, your refund beneficiary would be contacted to receive those funds. So if you are vested, let's just say, for example, you have listed your spouse as survivor beneficiary and your sister as refund beneficiary with a spousal consent form, listing that refund beneficiary. So if your spouse who is listed as your survivor beneficiary does not supply the necessary documentation or contact PERA to let us know of your passing within 1 year of the date of your passing, your sister, for example, would then be contacted to receive those funds as a refund. So it's super important that you also let your beneficiaries know that they are your beneficiaries and what type of beneficiary they are, just so that they know what the requirements are. In case something were to happen to you, they know what they need to do with PERA in order to receive those funds. Another helpful tip, be sure to always include a 9-digit social security number. I know sending in sometimes our full social security numbers to an agency or to a company can be kind of scary, but we definitely do need that number in order to set up your beneficiary's account, like I had mentioned before. Without that 9-digit social security number, we're not able to update your information. So your form will get scanned into your account, but you won't see it reflected on your online account or on your member annual statement. So it's super important that we get that information set up in your account so you're able to see it reflected, so that if there is a change that needs to come up later down the road, you're able to make that call when you see that information. So you're able to kind of communicate with us immediately about that change if needed. If you are listing, I forgot to mention earlier in the seminar, you do have the option to list an organization as a refund beneficiary as well. So for example, if you did not have a specific individual or individuals that you would like to receive those funds, then you can list an organization. So let's just say, for example, I'll just go with Santa Fe Animal Shelter. If you're wanting to list Santa Fe Animal Shelter to receive a refund of your contributions at the time of your passing, then you can do that. We just need to make sure that you are able to provide us with their tax ID number, again, so that we're being sure to get those funds sent to the correct place in this instance. We also need the full first and last name of your beneficiary. So if you're just putting the first name of your sister who you're listing as beneficiary, or the first name of your spouse that you're listing, we won't be able to set up their account. So again, more information is better in designating your beneficiary, just because we're setting up their account from scratch, basically. So we need all of the same information that we would be asking from you. Another thing to keep in mind, that if you do not choose to list an individual or a organization as your beneficiary, if you choose to not list any entity on the beneficiary designation form, at the time of your passing, your refund would then go to your estate. So it would just get paid out in a one-time lump sum payment to the estate under your name. So just to kind of keep in mind, if you are choosing, sometimes I know, because I've worked in our records division as well, we receive beneficiary designation forms that are completely blank and just signed and dated at the bottom. So basically that indicates to us that if you are to pass, we should pay that refund benefit, out to your estate. So if that is not something that you are wanting for yourself or for your benefit, definitely be sure to either be listing an individual or two separate individuals or an organization, just so that we make sure that that gets sent to the correct place. You may not list more than one beneficiary under each section. So I have seen many times, both in our call center and in our records division, a member will submit a beneficiary designation form with 3 names listed under survivor beneficiary and 2 names listed under refund beneficiary. Unfortunately, PERA cannot divide your benefits to multiple people. So whichever category your benefit would fall under, being if you're vested or not vested, if your refund beneficiary would get contacted, or if your survivor beneficiary would get contacted, it does have to be one person that receives those funds, either as a refund or as a survivor benefit. So just keep in mind that unfortunately we cannot divide those benefits among multiple people. So when you're listing those beneficiaries, if you are listing 2 separate individuals, just know that those are the only 2 people that you can list to receive, and only one will get that payment. You can list the same person, totally fine. That person would get contacted in either scenario. So totally fine. Just kind of keep in mind that we cannot divide your benefits. Marriage changes your current beneficiary selection. So for example, and I always like to use examples just because it makes more sense in my mind. But just for example, if you have listed your beneficiary, let's just say, for example, as your sister prior to being married, and you get married during the course of your PERA career, if you are still wanting to list your sister as beneficiary, you'll want to notify us of that change, because what happens is the next form that you submit into PERA says married, right? So that married box is checked, and now we're looking at the change in information there. So in order to make that change, in order to keep your sister listed as beneficiary, if that's the option that you'd like to choose, you'll have to send in a new beneficiary designation form with a spousal consent form. Otherwise, your benefit would then automatically be directed to your current spouse at the time of your passing. So let's just say, for example, you did not send us a current beneficiary designation form with the spousal consent form attached. At the time of your passing, we would still then reach out to that spouse. So if you were wanting your sister to receive those benefits, because that form was not on file, that updated information, we wouldn't be able to change it at that time. So just kind of keep in mind that it's totally okay if you don't want to, if you want to keep your beneficiary designations the same as they were prior to being married, that is completely fine. We just need that extra documentation on file for you so that we're able to pay out that correct individual at the time of your passing. Super, super, super important. If you get nothing out of this seminar today, this last bullet on this slide is one of the most important things. So it is extremely, extremely important that you confirm who your beneficiary is on file at least once a year. Just to kind of take a look, you can either go online and look at this information on your Rio self-service account. You can contact PERA. We can give you that information. You can see it on your member annual statement. So there's a few different ways that you can see this information, but super, super important to be making sure that this information is correct and up to date. But also, even more importantly than that, to make sure that your beneficiary's contact information is up to date. So we see it time and time again, where an individual will submit a beneficiary designation form at the time of hire with their application for membership. They start working, God forbid something happens to them, right? They have 20 years of service credits. We're going through the account, we're reaching out to that beneficiary that we had on file 20 years ago, and they've moved 3 times since we received that initial form. We have no way of knowing where that beneficiary is. So we will send out letters. I believe we send out 3 letters before we start reaching out to see if there is another next of kin that we can contact to supply us with the documentation that we're needing in order for that beneficiary to receive that payment. But it is super complicated at that point to try to narrow down where that individual is. So anytime that your information changes or your beneficiary information changes, and this being your email, phone number is really, really important for our death and disability department. Your address is super important as well. Anytime that information changes for either yourself or your beneficiary, we want to know that information. So even if you don't live with your beneficiary, you've moved but your beneficiary hasn't, or your beneficiary has moved but you have stayed in the same location or at the same address, totally fine. We just need to know where everyone is, basically. So really super important that those updates get sent into PERA so that we make sure to pay out accordingly in that timely manner, because we only have that 1 year after the time of your passing to make sure that that survivor beneficiary, if that is the category that you fall under, receives those payments on time. So super, super, super important. The next slide that we'll go over explains how to change that information. So on our website as well, I know I had mentioned that you can find our beneficiary designation form. You can also find our change in records form as well. So this applies to both you and your beneficiary. So if you're changing your information, you'll fill out all of your demographic information up at the top, your name, your social, your date of birth. If your beneficiary is changing information, they will also fill out one of these forms with their information, because as I mentioned before, we set them up with their own account under their social security number. So where it asks for your social security number, they'll put their number in, their first name, last name, date of birth, and all of their contact information changes. So super, super important to remember, not only for yourself, but for your beneficiary as well. But down below towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see some applicable documentation that you may need to supply into PERA in order to make the changes on your account. So again, a copy of your divorce documentation, marriage certificate, social security card. Let's just say, for example, you've had to change, you or your beneficiary has had to change your social security number for any reason. We're definitely going to need verification and proof of that change. So a copy of that social security card, any type of proof of name documentation. So sometimes it's not due to divorce or marriage. Sometimes you are just simply changing your name for whatever reasons given. You'll want to supply that court documentation for that name change, or a copy of your driver's license as well. So any of those can be applicable for you depending on which change you're making in reference to the change in records form. All right. And then checking your beneficiary designation. So I know we kind of touched on this a little bit prior, but checking your beneficiary designations, there's a few different ways to do that. So of course, again, you can see that information listed on your member annual statements. You'll receive your personal account contributions, service credits, beneficiary information, as of June 30th of this year. Those are usually sent out in September, late September, early October. So just kind of be looking for that in the mail. Again, we'll be mailing out to the address that we have on file for you. So if you are needing to update that information, please do so that we make sure that that documentation gets sent to your correct address. But the quickest and easiest way to get that information would be to log into your Rio online self-service account. So if you go to our website, www.nmpera.org, on the homepage on the top, there'll be a little yellow button that says Rio Login. So you'll click that button. Up at the top there, you'll be able to, it'll direct you to the login page, excuse me. Up at the top, you'll be able to either log in or create your account. So if you're logging in, if you've already generated your account for yourself, just keep in mind that if you're having trouble logging in, if you're having trouble accessing that account, passwords do expire after 120 days. So just kind of keep that in mind. You may be needing to update that password, but you can view your information at any time. You can also upload forms for processing. So if you have to update that beneficiary designation, you can't do it yourself.
Miss Natalie, you just went mute, so I'm not too sure what may have happened with your audio. But if maybe I'm thinking your mic, maybe some issues with your mic. But if not, I can carry on the rest of the seminar. So you want me to just go ahead? Go ahead
It
and
is
nod.
my mic.
Oh, okay. I can hear you now.
Oh,
But
okay.
do you want me to just go ahead and finish?
It's probably going to die. I charged it. I charged it yesterday and it's dying out now.
No problem, hon. So, like Natalie said, you know, she had already mentioned one way to check your beneficiary designations is by looking at your annual member statements. So those do get mailed out in, like this year, this last year, they were mailed out in early October. So we usually tell people that is when. And then if you are more of a virtual person, more techie, and you want everything at your fingertips, like me, you can actually open an online Rio account. And you can actually download all of your statements. You can see who your beneficiary is. You can utilize all of our estimate calculators. It's just a good resource to have, especially if you're more of a virtual, like I said, more electronic person. It takes about 2 minutes to go ahead and set up your Rio account. So it's pretty fast to set that up. And then after that, you have 24/7 access to your Rio account. And you can monitor all of your service credit during your PERA career. Another great thing about Rio as well, so we had just been talking about all of our forms, so our beneficiary designation form, change in PERA records form. You can also download, actually upload those forms to your Rio account, and then they would be sent to PERA and then forwarded on for processing. So it's just a really great resource to have if you are wanting to just monitor your beneficiary designations as well as all of your account information. Next slide, Miss Natalie, please. So again, once you click on the top yellow button to create an account, it is actually going to direct you to a separate web page. You'll see login, so you can go ahead and log in if you already have an account. If you don't have an account, you can open an account. So there's a top tab right next to login that says open an account. And like I said, it takes about 2 minutes to go ahead and set it up. We just ask for your basic demographic information, your employer information, and then after that, you would go ahead and be able to access your account. If you do ever have issues, I know sometimes we have members who, you know, maybe their employer put the last 4 digits of their social incorrect in their account, and they're barely finding out about now, or you know, just some sort of error, you can always give us a call. There is a tab at the top as well that says contact us. And all you need to do is just either call us or email us, and our Rio team will make sure that you're situated and you're able to get into your Rio account. So like I mentioned, some other things that you can do in Rio, you can change your password, update your account login email address, change your secret question and answer if you ever you know, face any of those situations. You can also update your permanent mailing or temporary address with us. You can update your home and our business phone, as well as your email address in PERA as well. In Rio, I mean. Next slide, Miss Natalie. And then if you ever have any questions, if you're just not even sure, you know, how everything works when it comes to your beneficiary designations or just anything in general, any PERA related questions, we do have our 2 offices. So we have an office in Santa Fe. A lot of people get us mistaken for the old PERA building. So we're no longer in that building, but our new building, we've been there since I think like 2012. So it's been some time. We are located right behind the Santa Fe New Mexican. So just before on Cerrillos, right before the exit to go down south on southbound 25. And then we also also have our Albuquerque office. During COVID, we moved to a new office as well. So we're located on Jefferson. But you can come in anytime, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You don't need an appointment, as we see members on a first come, first serve basis. And I promise you, lately, no one has been knocking down our door. We don't have lines of people outside. So it's been pretty quiet and steady. So you can always come and visit us. But most of the time, Natalie, myself, and our colleagues in our customer service division, we can save you a trip. Please give us a call or email us. I know now with this crazy weather, the last couple of weeks we had, like everyone else, some closures and some delays. And so, members were calling saying that they had been on hold for, 2.5 hours, and we never want you to wait that long. We don't even want you to wait more than 5 minutes on hold. And so you can always send us an email. Natalie, myself, and our other colleague, Christina Gauthier, we monitor all of the incoming emails, and we're very, very fast in responding. So if you need an immediate answer, just give us an email, and we'll send you back some information that you're looking for. And then if you're not too even comfortable talking to people in person just yet, we totally get it. With the pandemic, we do have secure drop boxes in front of both locations, so you can always drop off your forms, and they are secure and they are being checked every day. So you can always do that. And you can always email, fax, or mail in any forms that you need to send to PERA. And then again, there's that really neat feature now in Rio where you can upload all of your completed forms, and they will get to PERA as well. So a lot of different avenues for you all to communicate with us. We're trying to do these seminars as much as we can, just so that way you guys have some good information and a face to kind of just communicate with going forward throughout your PERA career. Like Natalie mentioned, throughout the seminar, you can find all of our forms on our website, which is www.nmpera.org. We have forms, we have kits, we have handbooks. All of our videos that we've ever done have been saved in our video library, so you can even access those videos there as well. And then any information, other information, if none of you know about our Smart Save Deferred Compensation Plan, that's a huge tip that we usually try to educate members on. And then like Natalie mentioned, we are governed by a board of trustees, so you can even get on our board meetings and just kind of see what your board members are up to, throughout your PERA career as well. And then social media. So if any of you are social media gurus and you follow these pages for everything, PERA is on these social media pages. I promise Natalie and I aren't going to be stalking you and seeing what you're up to this weekend. It's mostly just to share information with members. So we definitely encourage you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then that concludes our presentation. So we hope that all of you found it very useful in, just kind of figuring out how it pertains to you as a member going forward. We do have a Q&A, and I have been answering questions as we were going forward. So we will actually go ahead and conclude the recording. So that way, if any of you have direct questions, we'll go ahead and answer them, and they don't have to be recorded. We don't advise you to share any of your personal information, as 139 people are on right now, and we definitely don't want you to be sharing your social security numbers. But we will go ahead and open it up. If you do have a question, all you need to do is just raise your hand, and then we will go ahead and let you ask your question. So I'm just going to conclude recording. Again, we're here for you.